WWT presents Experts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of WWT Experts. I'm your host, Matthew Coble, as always. And, in today's experience economy, delivering exceptional customer experiences across all the touch points out there is really critical for driving growth and loyalty. However, many retailers struggle to make sense of all their volumes of data to create truly personalized and sort of contextual experiences at scale for all of us. But when used effectively, AI and advanced analytics can really change that. So today we're going to talk with two WWT experts, Jay Custard and Manju Palakat, who are going to share their knowledge about AI and retail and how retailers are thinking about all of these uses of data and analytics to drive those great experiences. So you'll learn some great best practices that you can adopt today. So this is one episode in a 4-part series we have on retail and how retailers are thinking about cloud, security, unified commerce, and of course today's topic, AI and data. So with me first, Jay Custard is a Chief Digital Advisor with Worldwide Technology. Jay is an experienced digital strategy and e-commerce executive, and he's worked across multiple disciplines with companies of really all sizes to transform retail on a global scale. He really loves blending together user experience, analytics, marketing strategy, merchandising, and technology to optimize retail for our clients and their customers. And given his deep retail background, we're delighted he's here with us at Worldwide Technology and delighted he's here today. Also with us is Manju Palakat, a Director of Digital and AI Products with Worldwide Technology. She is really passionate about helping clients transform their business models by leveraging emerging technologies and enabling an intelligence-driven organization. Her consulting experience includes driving large-scale digital transformations and really solving complex business problems, especially in the retail industry. We're delighted you're here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here, Matt.
Good to see you, Matt, and always happy when Manju's on the screen because I learned something. So super excited.
Yeah, great to have you both. Well, look, let's jump right in, Jay. So when you look at the retail industry today, where do we see retailers really falling short when it comes to data? Are they struggling to capture the right data? They're struggling to get access to it in the right places, or is it really a combination of both those things?
It's kind of easy to say yes to that question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really complex. I think where the shortcomings are, it's not for lack of an effort, right? I think in retail in particular for the past, 10, 12, 15 years, there's been this shift from less rear view, right? Retail is very historically driven, right? Because a lot of businesses plan annually, quarterly, hoping to turn their stores once, twice, 3, 4 times a year, right? So a lot of the historical information has been backwards looking in a lot of ways, right? But what we're seeing now and more is that retailers are collecting pretty much anything they can, right? So there's not a shortage of data that's being collected. Sometimes it's just because you can doesn't mean you should type of a situation, right? So, and what happens is these are done in fragmented ways across different parts of the retail organization, from operations to merchandising to marketing to logistics and supply chain, and they just don't quite match up to provide that unified view of what's going on in the business. And I know Manju spends a lot of time with our customers. Would you agree with that, Manju?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Jay. When you think about the reality of what's happening on the ground, many retailers have disparate systems, right? So when you think of point of sale, e-commerce, loyalty, these systems don't communicate effectively, and that leads to a lot of inconsistent data capture. And even if a retailer captures a vast amount of data, another reality is that the quality and the relevance of the data is often lacking. And so you end up with data silos, which becomes a very significant barrier. Retailers have a tough time storing data across these different platforms. They don't really have that unified approach, makes it very challenging to access and leverage these comprehensive insights. And on top of that, you have outdated legacy systems, right, which are not equipped to handle these modern data demands. And so you have to deal with integrating data from a multitude of sources, different formats. And so making that, very cohesive, actionable data set is really a common struggle. And even when the data is captured correctly, the ability to access and utilize it in real time is often lacking. To your point, overcoming these challenges requires adopting integrated data platforms, leveraging advanced analytics and AI, data governance, there's a multitude of challenges ahead of retailers.
Yeah, and I wouldn't forget the security aspect of it, right? The more data we collect with all these third-party systems and the disparate, it just leaves gaps, right? And these attack vectors get more and more. So, these things become just so intertwined to each other. We all do the right things in retail, trying to deliver on the right employee and customer experiences, but there's just a lot of risk with these legacy systems and this lack of cohesion around what we're doing with our data, right? So.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to build on both your answers here and ask a question about the newer forms of data that retailers are collecting, right? It's definitely my impression that retailers already have a ton of data, but in recent years, it seems like there's more and more data, newer data coming from various places. So I'm curious if you tell us a little bit about, what are some of those new data sources and how are retailers integrating that into the existing footprints of data they have, or maybe not?
Yeah, I think the thing that we're seeing more and more interjected into it, right? Digital marketing groups and places that were, when e-commerce kind of came about and the push into omnichannel, I think a lot of the digital parts that were native of a retail business really had a lot of information. Again, siloed, maybe not necessarily as contextualized with, POS or CRM or some of the, supply chain logistics data. But I think where we've seen the biggest push lately is really the digitization of the analog. Tell me what's happening with people in my stores. Tell me what particular equipment, digital kiosks. Tell me about the awareness of things that are happening, either through computer vision or IoT sensors, or just pinging off of Wi-Fi and using beacons inside the store. So you're starting to get this really interesting behavioral data in stores, even using something like geomagnetic pulses of the earth through some of the tools that we've seen. So there's not any shortage of trying to understand consumer behavior, tying that to mobility data, trying to really understand the context outside the four walls of a store versus inside the four walls of the store. But again, just think about the ways that data in its isolation, does it really drive any impact? Does it really mean anything? The value of it is contextualizing against all those other data sources to bring those together. And that's really where we see that challenge, right, Manju?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the one thing that we don't lack is data, to your point, Jay. And, and it comes in these different forms, right? Whether it's unstructured or structured. You're talking about emails and documents and, all forms of information that's out there. And connecting all of those different pieces together, even when you think about your personalization aspect from a customer standpoint and really trying to understand your customer, really trying to understand the customer journey, there's a lot of data available, and making sense of that data is a real challenge.
Well, so then, let's enter to the stage artificial intelligence, right? So I imagine that AI is this sort of magical panacea that's making it all better. No, or maybe not, right? So I'm curious if you're seeing, interesting use cases of AI to deal with these volumes of data, and where's that really being leveraged in retail to truly drive better personalization, kind of contextual relevance, and advancing the quality of that customer experience. Is that happening out there?
It is, and I think to a different degree of maturity, right? And I think one thing we need to do is kind of deconstruct AI, because there's been a lot of, predictive machine learning. There's been a lot of sophistication in retail for quite some time. I really think driven by that whole notion of going direct to consumer, building out online, properties, making that a bigger part of the business, as well as just some of the push into omnichannel. So we've seen a lot of that. I think where the new versions of AI, like Gen AI in particular, really come into bear is it's great for a summarization tool, right? It's not going to find things on the outliers, right? It doesn't look for the end states. It looks for what's happening most, right? And so if you think about all these different data sources, and if we're able to get those into a place where retailers can kind of make sense of email patterns and store shopping patterns and promotional response, things of that nature, then you can use something like Gen AI to really start to build operational insights on the back end so that we have better ideas of how to manage the flow of our customers and our employees. But then it really just sets up these paradigms for longer term kind of cognitive analytics where we start to see our business very differently. And there are all kinds of great examples of this in the space around some of these shopping advisors that you're seeing Amazon and Canadian Tire up north starting to build, or you're seeing Walmart build tools that really keep the employee engaged on the floor by giving them operational intelligence around what's in the store, where is it located nearby, what's this customer look like. So we're starting to see the amalgamation of machine learning, generative AI, and a lot of these other really cool technologies start to develop into things that operationally fix the store, but also then deliver on those customer experience challenges. And I know Manju sees this day to day with our customers.
Absolutely. I mean, when it comes to our retail customers, what we see a lot of use cases that leverages both the traditional AI, your traditional machine learning, predictive analytics, as well as the generative AI. And a lot of the use cases that we're seeing, for example, one bucket, if you will, or a group of use cases that we're seeing is around personalization when it comes to customer experience. For example, take product recommendations. How do you analyze that customer behavior, the purchase history, the browsing patterns of the customer so that you can suggest these products that would interest them at the individual layer. So it's really about that hyper-personalization. Another area where we're seeing a lot of our clients leveraging AI is in customer support, for example, AI-powered chatbots, which provides this instant support to customers, whether it's answering queries or resolving issues or even processing orders for that matter. So think about drive-through orders. How can you make it more personalized where even my dietary preferences, right, are taken into account, so it enhances my overall experience. The other group of use cases that we see is around driving operational efficiency. So demand forecasting, for example, is a very common use case that a lot of our retailers are implementing today, trying to figure out, okay, what is the demand for products with that high level of accuracy? How can you maintain those optimal inventory levels, reduce that stock outs, minimize that excess inventory? And finally, another use case I'll say that's pretty common that we're seeing is around automation. So when you think about routine tasks, labor is a big deal, right? Especially within the retail industry. So how do you optimize your labor? So routine tasks such as data entry or inventory counts, these are some of the things that can be automated using AI. And that in turn allows you to free up your employees to focus on more value-added or strategic initiatives.
And I think that's kind of the theme that we're seeing. I think there's a lot of attention on the big, bright, shiny, and the really, really amazing things that can be done. But to Manju's point, the one of the largest costs that any retailer has is labor, right? And we know how challenging that market has always been from a turnover and retention perspective. Don't be afraid to start on the operational side to empower those employees, get that commoditized work off their plate. We're asking more and more retail associates than we ever had before, even at the back office, right, or at corporate. How can we use those automated tools to drive out that repetitive stuff so that folks can really work on more high value things that contribute to the top and the bottom line?
This episode is brought to you by Five9. Power more personalized interactions with real-time data to create extraordinary customer connections. Streamline the agent workflow experience with Five9 and revel in the results.
Well, when I think about, the volumes of data we're talking about here, and, my mind definitely goes to the idea of dashboards, reports, and sort of those traditional models of kind of referring to and consuming that information. But I think increasingly, I've learned from you that we're working with our clients to make that data actionable in real time, so it moves quickly enough. It shows up, with insights and sort of automations that can drive forward use cases in real time to act on that data. So, Manju, I wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about how retailers are making that shift from dashboards to action.
Yeah, so to effectively transform those, like I said, Matt, the traditional data dashboards into those real-time actionable insights, the reality is that you have to adopt a full stack approach. And that encompasses both the front end, customer interactions and the back end core systems that you have within your organization. You have to integrate these customer facing touch points like your e-commerce platforms, your mobile apps, the in-store systems like the POS system with the back end processes like inventory management, supply chain, CRM systems, and so forth. And that sort of an integration allows for a seamless data flow within the organization. You have to think about consolidating data from a variety of sources into a unified platform because you have to gain control of your data and you have to establish a single source of truth that enables that generation of actionable insights. Real-time data processing is another thing that you have to take into account when you design your full stack, meaning you have to have the ability to process data in real time. So that you get instant insights into customer behavior or market trends, or how do you drive that operational efficiency. And with the real-time insights, what it allows you to do is you can then personalize customer experiences. by offering these tailored recommendations and dynamic pricing and targeted marketing campaigns and so on. And like Jay mentioned earlier, ensuring data security and compliance with regulations like GDPR, CCPA, those are all essential in a full stack approach. So you have to have robust data governance frameworks to protect the customer information and, obviously maintain trust with your customer.
I think this is a philosophical change at the highest level. And I think retailers who have figured this out to live not in that rear view mirror reality. And I'm just saying this, having sat inside multiple retailers and been very guilty of this, right? It's very easy to compare what happened today with what happened last year, right? Same store sales, comps. These are the things that they're measured upon. And that's great, right? Retail has really embraced, descriptive analytics, diagnostic analytics, maybe some predictive analytics about what's going to happen. Now we're getting into the world of prescriptive analytics, like what should we do about it? And now we're emerging into this world through AI around cognitive analytics, which is the ability to take all these systems and take them out of the domain of maybe your digital team or maybe the coupon provider that you have around pricing and promotion that is a little more real time and a little more understanding. But it's only a fragmented view of your customer and your operations. And I think what Manju is talking about is you have to have this philosophical shift inside an organization to be real time, to be forward looking. Historical is always going to be incredibly important in retail because we have to know where we were so that we can figure out where we're going. But we have to update our mindset and get some tools that respond to the fact that customers have the lowest switching costs that they've ever had. There's more competition. The lines of retail are blurred at this point. And without that full view of your customer in real time, you're leaving margin on the table.
Well, Manju, a moment ago you mentioned the idea of kind of that full stack approach. So I'm curious, as you're talking with retail leaders out there and then looking at the marketplace more generally, how are you seeing those organizations taking, IT leaders, cybersecurity leaders, CRM, experience design, the software development teams, maybe sometimes the third-party partners they're bringing in to really have that proper full stack approach? And is there like a particular full stack that's right, or does that vary from client to client, company to company, retailer to retailer?
So the full stack approach is, not an all or nothing or, one size fits all type of approach. The reality is that most retailers will need to take an iterative approach, and it really starts with asking the right questions. So when you think about customer experience leaders, especially, reach out to your technology teams, understand what are like your systems that are in place, what are the integration capabilities that you have within your organization. Are your systems scalable? Like if you have increased data and user demands, can your systems handle that? Are there mechanisms in place to protect your customer data? Are you compliant with regulations? How do you ensure that the applications are providing seamless and intuitive user experience, for example? You can talk to your CRM teams about data quality, for example. Are there processes in place to ensure accuracy, completeness of customer data? Are we measuring and tracking customer engagement metrics? These are some of the questions that you have to ask up front. But the reality is that based on those responses, you may have to design your approach in terms of really getting to that full stack solution. And it starts with your business objectives at the end of the day, right? So you have to align whatever approach you take with your business goals. You focus, whether it is focusing on customer experience, operational efficiency, or innovation. You start with that, you assess your current systems and capabilities, and then you create a data strategy. Whether it is, a unified data foundation, whether it is about data or analytics at the edge, you have to figure out what it is that you want to target first, and then make the investments in scalable technologies and front-end applications and back-end systems and so forth. So by asking those right questions, you get a sense of your starting point and maturity level, and then you implement accordingly. The other reality is that based on your maturity level, you have to decide between, okay, should we build systems in-house or leverage third-party solutions? For example, a low maturity retailer can benefit from SaaS offerings because, it's about quick deployment, whereas a mid-maturity retailer might use off-the-shelf tools for centralizing data, for example. And high-end maturity retailers might decide, hey, I want to go custom built because I really want to have the competitive edge. So it really depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about that, when I listen to Manju talk about this and some of the peers on her team, it's outcome driven, right? If you listen to what she just said, there's so much here that has to go against the grain of internal incentives, right? Kind of silos that we build on org charts. Like some of this stuff is endemic because you'll find, and I did this, right? In the digital side of the business, I was a shadow IT guy all day long, right? Because I could go figure out what moved the needle for the online consumer, which had more tools, more access, more information, stuff that didn't have, the store folks didn't have necessarily all digitized. And so I could build those tools that would give me the answer to a limited question, but a question that I was very concerned about answering, right? So what Manju is saying is that this is not a technology decision, right? You can't throw this over the wall to your tech team and say, hey, go build this structure, or my enterprise analytics team has to figure this out. This is truly a cross-functional operation that has to happen all the way from the very beginning of where we source, secure, and build our products and services, all the way through the folks who are on the hook to deliver retention, brand affinity, all the way through. This is not a domain conversation. This is very much business outcome, operational goals. Where do we want to be in 3 to 5 years? And how do we make some hard bets so that we build that data the right way, so that we're collecting what we need, we're organizing it in the right way, we're securing it, and ultimately we're delivering on the promise of our brands.
Well, I'm curious if you would share with us, some pragmatic steps that retailers can really take today. Whether they've got a full stack properly in place or not. What are some real kind of tangible capabilities that AI offers that you can really lean into today? Whether it's predictive, Gen AI, or anything else. What are you counseling clients to really tackle some of those first initiatives?
Yeah, I think we've moved beyond the playing around, the science experiment with Gen AI in particular, right? I think companies that are finding value and success have moved on, beyond a proof of concept, which really is just, will the technology work to answer this question, right? It's not uncommon for us to talk to customers that have 140, 170, 180 use cases around where they think AI might be applicable in their business. And what we really counsel them is, cool, what are your strategic goals for the next 3 to 5 years? What does your customer look like in the next 12 to 18 months? What is your business going to look like? What do your stores look like? Because, companies are great at planning, and we've already got strategic initiatives in place. Most of those are funded, right? Whether it's on the mouse pad or on the wall, there are corporate imperatives, right? So if you think back to what's most important to drive your business forward, aligning AI-centered projects against those types of initiatives is where we're seeing companies have more success. And I would argue that we don't want to just do proof of concept. We want to make sure that we build these tools in such a way that, again, they're aligned with strategic initiatives, they're aligned with corporate kind of mandate. So everyone's pulling the rope, and the outcomes then can be truly assigned on a proof of value concept. And that value isn't understood about solving maybe one little tiny offshoot, which is fine to get our feet wet. But I think the way we have to keep evolving and what we're seeing is moving toward that concept of proof of value to where my business is going holistically, breaking that down into smaller chunks, and then finding ways to be honest about the assessment of that particular outcome. And is that tool the right thing? And don't be afraid to do it not on a customer-facing side. We're finding so much more operational efficiencies and so much more margin gain by just taking out the basics that we're asking employees to do, either at corporate, in the warehouses, shipping facilities, or even on the floor.
Yeah, Jay, I couldn't agree more. You really have to be pragmatic because you can't boil the ocean, right? Focus on your quick wins, right? If you think about even your existing ecosystem, there are CRM systems, for example, Salesforce, that offer these AI-powered insights and capabilities, right? To leverage those, to optimize your existing tools and platforms. Use cloud-based AI services, for example. When you think about AWS or Google or Microsoft Azure, they all have services that have these pre-built AI models and tools that can be integrated into your existing environment. So leverage those, collaborate with your partners like WWT, your different vendors, startup firms. That ecosystem provides so many ready-to-use solutions that are tailored for retail. And these can be so cost-effective and quicker to implement than building everything, your entire infrastructure and ecosystem from scratch. So be practical and focus on the quick wins is what I would say.
And the practicality extends to just being honest and assessment of your data, right? Where are we with what we have, right? You may have an enormous amount of it, but is it the right data? Is it governed properly? And do we feel like this is the right level of exposure of this information to either drive better employee or customer experiences, right? Trust is the biggest thing in retail. So, and again, I think data governance, data engineering, the structuring, start that conversation early in these concepts if you're a line of business owner. And man, please don't forget the security folks. Get them involved early. The world has shifted too much to have security be a bolt-on. And I know we've got a series on that, and you should absolutely check that out. And find the folks at Worldwide. We have people here who come from line of business. We have technologists. We have data science. We can give you these types of learnings to kind of help facilitate how you build these business cases moving forward in a very pragmatic way, to Manju's point.
All right, we're getting to the end of our time here, but I want to close with one final question for the both of you. We've talked a lot about technologies, process, tools, data, AI, all super important stuff, but I also think we should spend a moment talking about culture and people, right? So retail is fast moving, ever changing. I'm curious how you're counseling our clients to think about managing their cultures, their people, and kind of the internal culture of the organization to drive forward all of these initiatives. What advice do you provide there?
Manju, I'll let you go first.
Absolutely. So you're absolutely right, Matt. I mean, you can't be successful with any AI implementation if you don't invest in your people and the process. So one thing I would say is definitely invest in training and education, upskill your employees. There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of misunderstanding, especially when it comes to data and AI out there. So it's important to provide that training for your employees on AI basics, how to leverage AI tools effectively. And these can include online courses, workshops, seminars. Create AI champions within your organization. If you identify and train employees to become AI champions who can drive these AI initiatives, that will enable the organization to grow collectively and enable a very cohesive understanding of how AI can be leveraged and how they can augment their day-to-day from a productivity standpoint as well within the organization. So first comes the people, and then focus on, okay, how can you enable the processes in support of that? Especially with the advent of generative AI, it really becomes a cross-functional thing across the organization. It's no longer just about IT, for example. The organization cross-functionally across all business units really have to work together to figure out how do we optimally leverage these solutions effectively so that we can really drive that change that we need from a business perspective.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that there's often this notion that innovation or progress in a fast-moving industry like retail is only those who are talking or touching the customers, right? And I think in this day and age, innovation comes from all kinds of places. We do talk to customers who have kind of a zero tolerance policy around AI inside their organizations, right? It's kind of a head in the sand approach, quite frankly. And that worries me, right? Because these things are going to work. You have to know how people are engaging with these tools. So, Worldwide, we have the AI driver's license, right? Where we've set up some parameters, and we've got a governance committee, and we've got some things in place where we know where the guardrails are. Companies that are embracing that are, that's meaningful, just because you're starting to see the paradigms and the things that can enable productivity in our day-to-day. How many times do I use AI on a daily basis? It's a lot this time of day and age. How do we find instances in that, right? Curiosity and creativity, I think, have never been more important. But again, it's got to be within kind of this governance of, hey, these are the rules of the road where we are. This is what's appropriate for our organization. Here's where we feel like we're not going to jeopardize our employees or our customer safety or our brand trust. But within that, go crazy, right? But have the ability to bring those back in some sort of way where we can prioritize those in a way where we're not just running and shooting off all kinds of crazy science experiments that may or may not ever land, but what are the truths within that? Where do these tools enable the things that we know impact our customers and our employees the most? And those are the companies that we're starting to see start to thrive in this space. And it may not be generative AI. It could be something as simple as good old predictive analytics. So don't build the whole nomenclature around just AI equals Gen AI. There's a lot of power out there just in some of the more traditional things that are tried and true. But asking good questions and finding the right tools, that's where retailers are going to differentiate themselves across their entire organizations.
Well, excellent. We'll end things right there. Manju, Jay, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Matt. This is great.
Thanks, Matt. Always good to see you, and always good to see you, Manju.
Good to see the both of you as well. Hey, and thank you for joining us too. Another great episode today. And this was one of a 4-part series we have on retail and how the retail industry is dealing with topics like AI and data today. You can also check out the ones on cloud security and unified commerce. That and much, much more is out on WWT.com. We've got a great catalog of episodes from this show and others that you can watch on demand anytime. Calendar of stuff coming up in the future, so you can check that out and be alerted when it's going to drop. And we love to hear your feedback, so please take a moment to do the survey, drop us an email, let us know how we did today. And with that, we'll wrap today's session. Thank you for coming, and we will see you next time.